So there might have been a moment where I was like, yes. Drama mama over the top. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I want to go into this like with no preconceived notions. And I just loved it. I could cry. Such an idiot. Just walked up to somebody else's car thinking it was mine. I have questions, I have theories, I have thoughts, I have fears, I have wonderments. But I'm like, I can't stand here and take a picture like a creep because that's creepy, so. Welcome to Midnight. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to the vlog where I read Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. If you guys have been here for, I feel like, one video, like the long haul, you will know I have been talking about this book since I first heard Ashley Winstead talk about this book on a podcast last year when she was doing interviews for The Last Housewife. So I thought I would vlog my experience with it because I've completely built this up in my head and I'm so excited about it. She's one of my all-time favorite authors. I've read everything she's written and I'm gonna start this book today. So I thought I would vlog the journey for everybody. So I expect I will do more than just read this book. Like it'll just sort of be whatever's going on the days where I'm reading it and we'll see what happens. So I know next to nothing about this book. Again, apologies to those who have been here for a long time and have heard this story before. But when she was doing interviews for Last Housewife and talking about what she was working on, and she mentioned this book and she said it was like Every Summer After with serial killers. So I went out, because I didn't know what Every Summer After was, went out, found the book, which is a romance, contemporary, dual timeline, childhood sweethearts, something goes wrong, and then they meet again as adults and we find out sort of that entire relationship. That's by Carly Fortune. Did I say that already? I absolutely loved it. And then I was like, how is she going to take that book, which like both broke and healed my heart, and then put serial killers in it and make a book? But then Ashley Winstead can do anything and everything, so we're going to find out. So I know that. I know there is some sort of Twilight love, because Ashley Winstead has talked about Twilight, and I was not a Twilight girl, so that means nothing to me. So like I don't know how that's gonna work. And I know we are set in Louisiana and it's Southern Gothic. And that's all I know. I have not listened to anybody talk about this book. I've not read anybody's reviews. I give it all the love when I see people are reviewing it, but I'm not reading it. I did see one thing that Ashley Winstead had posted. Not that it's, I mean, she's obviously not spoiling her own book, but I'm really trying to go into this knowing nothing. So we'll see what happens. But this is how we're going into the book. So I thought what I would do is record spoiler-free thoughts and feelings as I read it. And then at the very end of the video, have a spoiler section, which I will flag, alerts, red, alarms, all the things so that nobody accidentally gets spoiled for anything. But I have a feeling I'm gonna wanna like talk deep as I get into it. So that is my game plan. I have nothing else planned in terms of like what we're gonna be doing while this is happening, but we're all gonna figure it out together. So here we go, guys. Welcome to Midnight. Oh, and I have my handy tabs. So anyone who hates on me for my dog earring, which I do, a dog ear situation too, I selectively tab selective books. So I felt like this color scheme kind of works because I have a feeling I'm going to go through more than one color. So anyway, no rhyme or reason to it, but okay, now we can get started. Hello, happy Thursday. I'm sitting in a parking lot, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously. I'm extremely early for a doctor's appointment because traffic is a crapshoot. Honestly, sometimes it can take me 45 minutes to get here, or sometimes it can take me 25 minutes to get here. And today was a 25-minute day. So I'm glad to not be sitting in traffic, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I could have spent 20 minutes at home reading Ashley Winstead or doing something else. So anyway, I am happily, probably, I want to say like 65, 70 pages into the book. So I read for a bit last night. I snuck in a little bit of reading before the doctor. So I took the morning off of work so I could come to this doctor's appointment, and I'm very much enjoying the book. So I will say it usually takes me like a chapter or two to get my bearings in any book, sometimes a little bit more than that. And I feel like after chapter 1, I was like in. So like we got the premise and we're rolling. So we're getting dual timelines, and we have like past secrets coming to haunt us in the present and lots of questions, small town vibes, definitely a lot of small town drama. I love the way she paints a character. I love the way she paints an atmosphere. I love the way she creates. I feel like already I'm super familiar with this environment. Like, and even 5 or 6 chapters ago, like I feel like very early on I had a very good sense for this town, for these people, for the small kind of small-mindedness of this small town, and have a lot of questions about, there's a 6-year time gap in the dual timelines. So a lot of questions about how we got from A to B and what happened in between. And obviously things are slowly unfolding because that's how a book works. So we already have the present mystery. And again, this is like the premise of the book. This is like the first line of the book, is a skull is found in the swamp. And it's the, I want to say they said it's like the first homicide investigation in 30 years in this town. So it's like a 3-sheriff town. And yeah, who, what, when, where, why, how, all the questions. This man's driving by, and yeah, good. He's into his own stuff. He's not questioning the fact that I'm talking into my phone, which is fine. It's fine. So anyway, that's what's happening. So without getting into plot points and spoilers and all that stuff, which I'm not going to do at this stage of the game, the short version is I'm totally into it, and I'm very happy that I'm totally into it. I didn't think I wouldn't be. So yeah, I'm in. And there's already like some great lines and some great quotes. And again, I feel like she can just evoke stuff. And I'm really trying not to do this with books. But lately I've been doing this a lot with books, where from a craft standpoint, I'm so not focused on, but aware of how writers are describing either like an inflection or people's like physical responses to things, or like how somebody enters or exits a room, like how characters are described and how in very small ways they very quickly establish someone. If I had the book in front of me, I would read just like a line, but just it reminds me of, she said something about the male character in this. So it's Ruth and Everett are our main characters. And she wrote a line about Everett that 1000% reminds me of one of my main characters in my book. And I feel like fully captures how I feel about the guy that I'm writing about, which is also giving me a totally different feeling, not in a bad way, but I feel like maybe that's why I feel like I know Everett really well already, because I'm equating him in many ways, even though he's a totally different character, to a character that I wrote. And I'm just enjoying that. But I'm definitely mindful of the craft side of writing, and I'm still getting lost in story, but I'm definitely tagging and flagging in all sorts of different colors for all sorts of different reasons, but it's good times for sure. So anyway, that is today's update. I will obviously keep you guys more updated as I read some more. So I do have to work this afternoon, got some meetings, and then hopefully just can read a bit more tonight. I 1000% am kind of blowing off every other thing I could be doing in exchange for reading. I feel like I did a good balance last night. I did a little of this, a little of that, and I'm going to try and do more of that today. So I did go for a walk this morning in the fog. I'll post a picture for you guys, which I feel like does zero justice to it. I definitely felt like I was in the Hunger Games. Like, it was just sort of like, couldn't see at all. And I had my flashlight because the sun doesn't even come up till like 10 of 7. And it just was like, at one point, this man emerged from it, like walking to the train, but I totally was just like, if this was a scary movie and he like emerged from it, and then the other like part of me was like, this is like an amazing picture, because it was just like his black silhouette coming out of the fog. But I'm like, I can't stand here and take a picture like a creep because that's creepy. So this is what it's like in here. All right, I'm super close to myself here too. All right, I'm gonna go. I don't want to go sit upstairs because claustrophobic. But I might just do a lap around the parking lot and then go up. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. morning. Happy Friday. Happy time to check in on Ashley. So this probably looks like a little bit of a proper setup for Friday morning before work, but it's okay. I'm going to film after work, so I just had my gear pulled out. But anyway, we're here to talk about Midnight is the Darkest Hour. So I'm making some nice progress. I am in a very similar way to Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, having an experience where I am caught between wanting to like binge read it and do nothing else and take my slowest time possible reading the words. So I'm leaning more towards slowest time possible. And a lot of times when I'm reading a book, I'll try and sneak in like a chapter here or a few pages there or something like that, especially if it's like a fast-paced thriller. But this is a book I definitely want to sit in and be in for little chunks of time. So I'm not complaining in any kind of way. I'm enjoying it. If I could blow off work for the day and just sit here and read, I 1000% would, but not an option. So I'm very much enjoying it. So I've got like a little bit of a tab game going. I don't know how well you guys can see. And I'm almost gone with, you're not gonna be able to see that at all, my dark greeny blue teal color. So originally I don't annotate the way fancy people do, where I'm like, pink means this and orange means that and green means this. It's not how my brain works. I basically just flag things that I like. But what I was trying to do is use one color for like plot points, another color for quotes that I loved that are not necessarily story related, but like you could pull out of the story and really connect to. And then I was using another color for like some different reveals and things like that. So anyway, I'm just sort of like dancing my way through this entire thing of tabs. But since we're staying spoiler free, a few things I will say is I'm really enjoying the dual timelines and the connections between the two. I have definitely gone back a couple times when a character is mentioned. And I mean, I've been reading this is day 3, so it's not like I'm reading this over the course of 2 weeks. But I was like, okay, remind me, wait, what was said in this chapter? Okay, this is what we're saying in that chapter. And especially because we're dealing with like a 5-6 year time difference. So the past, we're starting to move forward. So it's like 5 or 6 years. And I'm really enjoying how she's connecting things from one timeline to the next. And then I have questions, I have theories, I have thoughts, I have fears, I have wonderments about what's happening. But I like where the story's going. And I will say again, I'm super excited that I didn't go ahead and read anything about this. And I'm even pausing listening to any podcast she's on, because I just I don't trust I shouldn't say the podcaster. Sometimes an interviewer says something that it unintentionally gives away. So anyway, going into this completely in the dark, I'm really enjoying that because I legit have no idea what to expect. And it's funny, I was thinking about this last night where part of me feels like this book feels very different for Ashley Winstead. Like she's in it. Things that I think are themes in her book definitely roll through this book. It is very much an Ashley Winstead book, but it also feels like a very different book. But I think when I read The Last Housewife last year, I was like, ooh, this is really different because it's super different from In My Dreams. But again, what I love about her and what I love about like a Geneva Rose and a Jessie Q. Sutanto is you have these authors who almost chameleon-like can shift from genre, can give you the same thing in a thriller but in a different way, can really manage to create worlds and characters and stories that feel so distinctly different, but also they're in it. Like, you know, it's that author. So I don't know how to quite articulate it, but this feels very different to me, which is not a criticism, it is a praise. The way that she's able to not have all of her books sound the same. And that's, you know, I feel like with some authors, like you have an expectation and it's fine. And even books that are distinctly different for other authors, you still know you're in their world. And then there's some books which I tend not to gravitate to or read more than 2 of if it feels like I'm reading the same story over again, which definitely happens. It's kind of like with TV shows when you have like formulaic TV. So I don't feel like there's any formula to this. How about that? And This is not a criticism. It's going to come off as a criticism. The chapters are not short. So for someone who wants to just read to the end of the chapter, sometimes it's a little harder. And last night I'm like, I'm just going to finish this chapter. And then I did. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to finish one more. So it's definitely not quick clipping in that way, which again is not a criticism, but for someone who has a very hard time stopping in the middle of a chapter, which I 1000% had to do today. I just had to stop in the middle because I had to like do this and then go to work. And there's way too many pages for me to be able to finish it. That's the only thing where I'm like, ooh, I really like a clean break at the end. So there you go. But those are thoughts and feelings for this morning. I'm still very much enjoying it. I'm enjoying taking my sweet old time with it, and I cannot wait. It's supposed to rain. Not that I'm excited that it's supposed to rain again all day tomorrow. If you've been on my channel, this feels like a broken record. But the freedom that affords me to not have to go outside if I don't want to, and I don't need to, I feel like it's going to be a great day for just reading my book. So that's the game plan. Good morning. Happy Sunday, everybody. I was not going to do a check-in until I got home. I'm just out running some errands, but I 1000% such an idiot. Just walked up to somebody else's car thinking it was mine and like had my hand on the door handle to unlock it and it wasn't unlocking. And I'm like, what is up? And I walk around the back of the car and I'm like, that's not my license plate. Having a black four-door. And when I bent over, I turned off the record button. So I have 1000% walked up to somebody else's car thinking it was mine, but never got so far as to like have my hand on the door handle and tried to open it and been like, why won't my car open? Because my first panic was like, why won't my car open? And then the second one, I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I walked right past my own car. So anyway, I'm going to go hit up the supermarket now, getting stuff done. So I did not update you guys yesterday because yesterday was on top of multiple rounds of all the rain, all the flash flood, all the stuff. I had the migraine that wouldn't quit. And I know 1000% it was weather mixed with, I had really restless sleep the night before because I was super uncomfortable, but I took multiple migraine pills and it never went away, which was super frustrating. So anyway, I did do a little bit of reading yesterday, but there was no way I was camera functional. So anyway, I am in the depths of midnight and I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm at the point now where I feel like there's so few things I can say without getting into the spoilers. So what I will say is that this continues to feel both extremely different for Ashley Winstead, yet I know I am in her hands, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense. And I am also very happy that something that I read since last we spoke made me very happy, because I had a little bit of fear that it was gonna like be one thing and I didn't want it to be the one thing. And I also thought like, well, that's silly. It's not gonna be that one thing because A, that's too obvious, and B, there's no way she's gonna do that to me. And it was not the one thing. So there might have been a moment where I was like, yes. And not even that it was like something like, well, I guess it was kind of whatever. I'm glad it is what it is. I'll say that about something in particular, but it's definitely, I mean, it's couldn't be more different from her other books. And I say this with no negative connotations. The entire time I've been in this book, I feel like I've had no idea where it's going. I don't know what to think. I don't know where we're going to end. Of course, in a parking lot that has 100 and something empty spaces, the car is going to park 2 doors away from me. But there's so many things I never would have predicted. There's so many threads and storylines. It never would have occurred to me. And I mean, I feel like that's the magic of any good book. I never want to see like all the things coming. I feel like so many books I have set expectations for, whether it's, I know it's an isolated thriller, or like, I know it's dark academia, and they don't always deliver, but like, or I know it's a police procedural. Like, you have some sort of guideposts, and I really feel like there's no guideposts to this book. Like, this definitely feels like something so unique. And I also say that with the caveat of, I didn't read the blurb on it. All I knew was what I told you guys at the beginning. Every Summer After was serial killers and Southern Gothic, set in Louisiana. So I'm also going into this, which is kind of, I feel like, I'll be very curious to see what the blurb says after I finish the book, but I'm kind of enjoying this. Like, there's been a couple points, I'm not gonna lie, where I almost was like, maybe I should read the inside flap because I kind of want to get a little more direction on this. And there are content warnings at the beginning of the book, which did frame a few things for me. So I feel like I knew a few things were going to happen at one stage or the other in this book, but not in a spoilery way. So I am not someone who needs a content warning, but I think that it's great that they're there for people who do need them. And I could see somebody, just like with Housewife, opening up the content warnings and being like, not for me. So I would rather that be somebody's experience and somebody buy the book or buy any book and read it and be like, what the what? But I feel like that's all I knew. My voice just cracked. Like, I needed to tell you that. So anyway, that's where I am, but I'm going to go hit up the supermarket because I want to get home. It is, I think it went down to like 45 degrees last night. I am not mad about it. I think it's like 55 right now. My car says 59, but I'm in the sun. And I'm going to take a walk later this afternoon. So I read a little bit at breakfast. I got some stuff done at home, would like to get some more stuff done. And then after lunch, go for a walk. It's super windy out. Again, this is my season. Libra season, this is where Audrey thrives. So I'm very excited to put on even more layers. Like, I'm definitely like in the sweater and the jacket and the t-shirt and the scarf, and I couldn't be happier about it. So I'm excited to go for a walk, but I just want to knock out the supermarket and then be done with all the outdoor stuff because things start to pick up once we hit noontime here. So I want to get home before the people start to come out. All right. I'm also parked near a gym, which no wonder there's people parked around me. So anyway, all right. I'll be back with more, but I can't believe I walked up to somebody else's car. I'm such an idiot. And we're back. And I am done. The cover is back on. I've used so many tabs to mark up this book. Who's surprised? The short version, I don't think you guys can even, it's not going to focus, is it? It's just going to focus on my face. The short version is, I loved it, 5 stars, totally invested. So I finished this, it is Tuesday when I'm talking to you guys now. I finished this on Sunday night, and when I say I was so mentally and emotionally exhausted, I felt like I could have slept for 2 days. And I really wanted to take some time to process because my brain was like, there was part of me, I mean, honestly, I was like in my pajamas, so there's no way I was getting on camera. But there was part of me that was like, I should document this immediately. But I was like, nope, I just need to go to sleep. So in a very similar emotional way, I feel the way I felt after I read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll, in that just such an incredibly well-written, impactful, emotional story, and I'm just absolutely in love with these authors and just so in awe of what they do and how they do it, and I really loved it. And I will say I was so, I feel like satisfied is not even the right word, so satisfied with where this book went and how it ended and everything in between. And I also very much feel like this is a book that holistically, I love it so much more than kind of like, what's the thing about like, it's greater than the sum of its parts. Like, there were so many parts to this book that I really loved, but overall, I just like, collectively, it's so good. And there's so many great quotes, and there's so many things I can't tell you guys because it'll give stuff away or will not make any sense. And like, there's this one line I flagged here, and it just says, as hard and simple as that. And it's just like those little things that she writes, but there's an incredible Q&A in the end of this book with Ashley Winstead, and she just talks about all the things. And I've listened to a handful of interviews so far. I'm not done yet. And I'm really glad, I have to say, that I didn't listen to or read anything about this book before I read it. So I know I went very like drama mama, over the top. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I want to go into this like with no preconceived notions. But it really did, I think, impact my experience in a positive way, because even just listening to some of these interviews where they're not giving anything away, like they're talking about like stuff that's right in here. So it's a lot of premise of the book, but I do think it would have impacted some of my expectations. Like I legit, every chapter, like just didn't know what was going to be coming. And I really liked not knowing, because I think I would have been waiting for some stuff or making different judgments about stuff or different theories about stuff. I had a lot of theories. A lot of them were not right. But it is definitely different than her other two books. Her other two thrillers, definitely different than her romances. I've read all of her books. And I really love that she makes these like continued departures. Like she's not giving you the same thing every time, even though you're getting the same incredible writing, incredible stories, great characters, great, like I feel like you can feel the power and the emotion that went into this, and you can feel Ashley Winstead's passion for what she's writing about. And in listening to some of these interviews, I now know a lot of what's in here is inspired by things that she actually experienced, or inspired and then heightened things are in here. But there are things that are definitely drawn from her own life, whether it is actual things or sort of broader things. And I will also say, and again, I know this is very tricky because I'm in the spoiler-free zone here, but I want to give you guys more of my emotions rather than plot points in this. But what I will say about the Twilight of it all is and I don't know if I said this earlier, I'll figure out when I actually edit this, I am not a Twilight person, so I definitely was a little bit too old for Twilight. Which doesn't stop me from the sense that like I will still consume YA content all the time, but it was pitched as like for fans of Buffy. I am a diehard Buffy fan, and I got Twilight and I started to read it and I DNF'd it. I just couldn't get into it. It felt like it was trying to be Buffy to me. Like it was not my passion. So there are plenty of other things that I am passionate about and I obsessed over. But my experience with Twilight sort of started and ended with that. I did eventually watch the movie when it came out, which did not help the situation. And that was it. So I don't think you need to know or care about or like Twilight or any of that to get in this book. And I had mentioned it to Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm maybe missing some Easter eggs or like little nuggets that are there for like the Twihards. And she told me no, she was a big Twilight fan. So one way or the other, I don't think the Twilight part matters. I think if you understand the core story about Bella and Edward, and she also tells you it in this, but what's more important is that the book serves as like a gateway for Ruth in this book, and it's central in that way. So it's not that you need to know all about the Twilight Saga to understand the book, but it's more about what the book represents that's important. And again, it's all explained in here. And then Ashley Winstead tells you more in some of the interviews that she's doing. So anyway, that's that. But not that there was ever any doubt that I was going to love this book, because I do have extreme passion for Ashley Winstead. But I totally loved it. It was definitely worth the wait. Man, did I try to get my hands on this earlier. But again, I think books find you when they're supposed to, and it was supposed to find me now. And I took my time. I read it over 4 days, but I very much took my time with it. I stepped away from it. I came back to it like later in the day. I enjoyed being in it, and I'm already excited to reread it. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to handle like my Ashley Winstead reread process. I've already read In My Dreams twice, but I kind of want to read it again. So we'll see. More to come on all of that. But I'm going to stop the spoiler-free part of the video now. So for anyone who doesn't want to hear any more, doesn't want any spoilers, hasn't read it yet, thank you so much for watching, for listening, for being here. And I would love to know thoughts down below. So I am going to go into a spoiler section, which I will warn everybody about, but kind of for everybody, in case everybody pieces out at this point, please keep your comments spoiler free, because obviously not everybody has read it. But if you want to like email me or DM me on Instagram, I know I'm slow and I'm bad about it, but I'm really trying to be better. Do it there. So let's just keep it spoiler free in the comments down below. But if you've read it, I would love to know if you loved it or like sort of emotional reactions down below. But on that note, all right, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone who's saying goodbye for now. I will see you guys in another video very soon. And for everyone who wants to stick around for the spoiler section, let's get into the spoilers. Okay, spoiler section here. So first things first, I did film some sort of in the moment spoiler feelings. So I'm going to roll through those first so that we're catching up to where we are. And then you will see me back in this fantastic ensemble after you see the piece by piece spoilers. So I'll see you in 3 seconds in my time and however many minutes in between in your time. Okay, it's Friday morning and I decided I'm going to at least record my thoughts about the spoilers live in the moment so I don't forget anything, / I kind of want to remember how I'm feeling at the moment. So at this stage of the game, I am on page 142. I am mid-chapter, which kind of hurts my heart from like a high maintenance standpoint. So we're in chapter 17 and there's so much happening. So having gone into this in the dark, but also knowing there's some sort of like Twilight-ish connection, I don't think we're going to have vampires. I really hope we're not going to have vampires. There's a lot of reference to Everett being other, unnatural, different. So I don't know if there's something supernatural, fantastical to him. We've had some hints about the witchcraft and about the cult of the witches and how they thought they obliterated them, but there's some survivors and kind of had a second coming in the 80s. And is his family somehow connected? Like there's a lot of references to his house being haunted. In like the first chapter of the book, she invited him into her house. And that is so stuck in my head from like the Lost Boys. So am I, and from Angel and Buffy, like, am I projecting stuff? I don't think he's going to be like an angel vampire, but there's also a lot of references to his pale skin. And he sort of like faked his drowning where she didn't feel a pulse or anything like that. And I don't know how a human would be able to do that. So I don't know if she's like felt his heartbeat. I don't know. She's like touched his chest and they're like this platonic relationship that's obviously brimming with some nice tension. So far in the present day, as far as we know, like she has told her boyfriend who's just proposed they're just platonic friends. I don't know if that's a lie or not. I feel like there's just best friend energy between them. So maybe this is just platonic, which I'm totally okay with. Although I am getting like little smoldery. There's definitely some smoldery tension between them. And I'm just curious if there's going to be a reveal about his darkness being more than just darkness. So I feel like at this stage of the game, we're meant to believe that he killed Fred. We know that he killed Renard. I always want to say Renard. And that he had a history now with Renard, with his dad running like a drug running. And I'm also assuming the guys from the fishing company were running drugs or doing something shady with their boxes, and they're doing it now. So I don't know. We'll find out, obviously, who else would want these people dead. And I really, really, really hate Ruth's parents. I was going to say her father, but I kind of hate both of her parents. I do appreciate that she Ashley Winstead, is carrying through themes of women as lesser, women viewed as lesser. Not that I'm like happy women are lesser, but this idea of like the wives of the fishermen don't matter. They're just the wives. Nobody's ever asked them their opinion. Nobody's ever come to see them. And that, you know, anyone who steps outside the church is viewed as crazy and insubordinate and, you know, led by evil and all of this stuff. And if you go to college, it's going to plant bad ideas in your head. And like everyone should just be kept in this town. And sort of like that level of just like trying to stifle any outside ideas into people, and they don't let them read certain books, and there's books being banned in the library. Like there's a lot of timeliness to this. I don't know why I'm holding this like it's a platter. But what I see in particularly her thrillers, and I'm thinking a lot of like The Last Housewife, is how women are viewed and devalued and viewed as less valuable. And even in this town, when she talks about in the church, you know, who sits in the front versus the middle versus the back, and the different tiers and respect levels in the community, and this community that has these super rich people in it that won't help out this boy who got into Duke, and how she couldn't go to LSU because her parents don't want her to go to college and leave town and get all these new ideas in her head. So I'm still very curious to find out like what's happened in between. I assume she's been here the entire time now, but how did she move out of her parents' house? I'm glad she did. And then kind of what does Everett get up to? I don't think there's going to be like a twist where he's a vampire. I feel like that's nuts. I hope he's not a vampire. I also hope they get together. I also don't like her boyfriend, Barry, but I don't think we're supposed to like him. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So there's a lot of great quotes and lines. There's a lot of great references. There's actually one that I just loved so much. And eek, let me see if I can find it. Because I definitely was like, and yeah, even like when she's talking about Sam going to college and she's jealous of him. And she said he dared to think bigger than I'd ever allowed myself. Just so good. So good. Oh, here it is. She sees Everett and she says, Everett looked at me at that moment in a way I've never been looked at before. And it 1000% brought me back to like a personal life moment of being looked at by someone and feeling like 1000% like no one has ever looked at me the way he just looked at me. And it just brought me back to this moment. And I was like, I feel that line in my bones and that feeling of just being looked at in a way that no one has ever seen you before. And I just loved it. I could cry. I just loved it so much. And it's like, those are the kind of lines, like they don't have to be big and epic and loud and screaming. Like it could be something just so subtle that 1000% connects to something that I feel and I have felt. And I just, like, I feel like if I don't know, maybe somebody else would connect to it too. Anyway, I loved it. Loved it. Totally enjoying it. Have to go do my job. And I will spoil more stuff later after I get to it. Okay, we're doing a Sunday late afternoon spoiler session. So I have 60 pages left in the book. I alluded to some of this when I was talking in the car this morning. I am so excited that Everett is not a vampire, a supernatural creature, that there's no supernatural stuff. I thought there was a chance that maybe Ashley Winstead was going to take a turn to the horror and like go Stephen King on me, because I know her first book, which never got published because she wound up dumping it and writing in my dreams, was like a YA supernatural, I don't even know if it was like sci-fi, but like I don't have anything against any of that, but I didn't want this to be that. So everything's coming together. We're obviously at like climax. I love that Ruth is fighting back against her parents, and particularly her dad. Her mom is in the dark, which I feel like is just another reflection about this town and society's view of women being like, he's literally just like, what's the wife's job? The lieutenant, like just stand there and be quiet. So I love that it's really just, and I don't mean like just, but that it is the evil is in the person next door. Like the evil of humans is so much darker and more messed up than all of like this supernatural vampiric stuff. And I love that she's just like, you barely have a pulse and I know who you are. And he was like, I'm not Edward Cullen. Like, I'm not a vampire. Like, he's basically just like, girl, no. And I was like, thank God. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be the evil that exists in the world is more evil than like any fantastical thing that you could think of. So I do like the witchcraft, trying to ward off evil, the conversations around the occult. So I'm curious about that. I'm curious if they've captured Everett yet. And I just have this vision, and I don't know if she's literally or figuratively just going to burn it all down. And I hope it ends with like her and Everett like riding off into the sunset together. I'm going to be really sad if one of them, like if he doesn't survive it or something and she rides off alone in the sunset, because I really want them to be together. I really want them to be together. And I love, there's that line, which I know Ashley Winstead has posted on her page before, where it's like, we're not the monsters, we're the sane ones. So in all of this big, gigantic mess, everything they've done is justified because it's like Dexter, like they're taking out the bad men. So they are serial killers with a purpose. They're obliterating the world of these terrible people. So I feel like it took a while to get to that. Like I really wasn't sure with all of like the religion and the occult and the Sons of Liberty and the drug dealing. I did kind of figure that the hospital was feeding them the drugs rather than they were stealing the drugs, but I didn't know that it was going to be like this whole conspiracy. I was thinking more that Herman, the now dead son, was like giving the drugs to the Sons, I keep wanting to call them the Sons of Anarchy, the Sons of Liberty, and then kind of like they had an inside man, but I didn't think about all of them being together in it, but I love it. And I love their tattoos being caught in that photo, and I just love Ruth's research and determination, and yeah. I'm so glad it's not like supernatural fantastical though. I really, really am. So, all right. So yeah, I'm in the home stretch. I'm sort of deliberately, really want to finish it, but I really don't. So I'm deliberately taking my time with it, but I signed up for a writing event tonight. I would love to finish it tonight. It's 5:10. I'm doing this like it's a vlog. I'll see you guys in the next spoiler one, I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, and we're back. Final spoilers. So, spoiler number 1. I am so glad he was not a vampire. I'm pretty sure I said that last time. It's worth saying it again. In listening to some interviews with Ashley Winstead, and again, this is where I'm glad I didn't listen to stuff ahead of time, but they talk about how the book has like a whiff of supernatural to it, and I think I would have just been too much in my head, but she said what she really wanted to do was sort of push just far enough for the reader to start to think like, man, is she really going to make him a vampire? But then obviously like not do it. So I completely fell for it. And it was one of those things where I was like, there's no way she's going to do this. And then I was like, which probably means she's going to do this, but there's no way she's going to do this. So I very much appreciate that we stuck with people are the evil and not these superstitions and not the occult and not this sort of myth that the people in the town were making up. So it's definitely got that Romeo and Juliet vibe. Like she is the pastor's daughter. He is the devil's son. And I loved them. And I feel like this will surprise nobody to know. I loved the Romeo and Juliet of them. I loved the Bonnie and Clyde of them. I loved, and I had said this to Sarah before I got to this point, and I was like, I hope she either literally or figuratively burns it all down. And I was thinking like, if they're really going to come after Everett with pitchforks and all of this stuff, and I could just envision, if you've watched, a Buffy or a Nancy Drew or anything, just like the townsfolk coming with their torches and everything else coming after him. And I was like, there's going to be fire there. she just needs to burn the place down. And like, I don't care how many people she takes down with it. And when she was in the church lighting stuff on fire, I was like, she's gonna burn it all down. I was so excited. So excited. Totally cheering for her. I love that she just came to her father, put it all out there. She figured everything out. She called him out on everything. I struggle with how I feel about her mom, because there's part of me who's like her poor mother, who I feel like was just figuratively beaten into submission, but obviously turned so many blind eyes because she admitted that she knew that like what they were doing to Ruth, hitting her with the cane and locking her in her room and all of this stuff was wrong. So like, I'm glad she got out. I'm glad her mom got out and like has to live with all of the knowledge and live with that and live with the fact that her daughter has left. And I also 10,000% loved the Thelma and Louise over a cliff ending. The romantic in me, they make it to the other side. They hit the bridge, the tires hit the bridge, they go down the other side, and they drive off into freedom, and they drive off into a happily ever after, and they continue to rid the world of terrible men who deserve Dexter style to be killed. So I love to see them on a vigilante just mission and in wild mad love in between, and they are just supposed to be together. And then the dark, despairing side of me is like, over a cliff, the end. And they don't make it to the other side. But I believe that they make it to the other side and they continue to rid the world of terrible people. That's how I see it. So they are doing the right thing. So I very much love that they are admittedly doing terrible things by murdering people, but they are ridding the world of terrible people. And I am someone who sides with them, and I am in it for all of it. I was wondering if there was going to be any past moment between them where they get together. And I like that she drew it out, because I definitely thought like that scene, I don't know if she was like 19 at the time, when she was in her bedroom and like her robe fell open. I was like, oh, here it comes. But no, it didn't happen then. And it didn't happen any other time. And then she was punishing herself. And I'm so glad she killed his father. And I was like, I kind of figured that out. And I don't think it was like so hard to figure it out. So I'm not like I figured it out. But I'm so glad that she did it, that he didn't just die on his own, and that he knew she did it and she was doing it to save Everett. And I love that Everett knew and he didn't say anything and he loved her anyway. And I just loved how they were so in it with each other and were just willing to just burn everything down for one another and to be together. And he was going to leave her the money from his house so that she could get out and go to school. I mean, it was just so many different things that I absolutely loved. And just what a terrible town and what terrible people. And man, did they get what was coming to them. So I do love me some revenge. I do love me some justice, and I view it as, you know, they were serving up some justice. They really, really were. And I just had such an incredible time with it. I'm not even kidding when I say I just was so exhausted. And for anyone who read the physical book, so I definitely was at a point where I was like, how many pages do I have left? And I kind of was like looking from the back, and I was like, okay, there's like her acknowledgments, and then there's a Q&A, and then there's some reading group. And then I looked down and I was like, okay, 369. All right. At that point, I think I had like 60 pages to go. And when I was reading, and when it goes below us, the bridge, and I was like, oh my God. And then you flip and it's the first chapter of In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife. So there's like 10 pages of In My Dreams. And I was like, I can't believe this is the end of the book. And I went back and I reread it and I was like, brilliant, just brilliant. She's so good. She's just so good. And I was, again, listening to so many different interviews with her, podcasts and on YouTube. And she was saying how at the end, when Ruth is like asking God, asking the devil, asking anyone who's out there, like to help them, she was saying that the reader is who Ruth is ultimately calling to, and it's up to us to decide her fate, which I just also loved so much. So when she says, "Dear God, I pray, dear devil, dear whoever's listening, I beg you, no more forward motion, no more physics, no more consequences. Give us this moment forever." And Ashley Winstead had said that we're the whoever's listening. So I just thought like that was so fantastic. And just listening to the interviews with her, there's so much great insight to her background. So she grew up a military kid, so they moved like every 2 years. And she talked about how when she was like 14, they were in Florida and her parents wound up joining this Baptist church, which kind of like changed everything. And she also talked about how she basically was dating like a low-key felon. She's like, I met him at church, but my parents weren't totally wrong to be concerned. But how much of that is infused in here, and they have since, like, things have changed. But it's very interesting how, like, that came in and how that, you know, like, influenced what's in the book. And I mean, there's just so much to talk about. But I really loved her teenage girl speech, which reminds me on like a similar but different level to the cool girl speech from Gone Girl. And again, even though I was not having these intense feelings about Twilight, I certainly could relate to what she was talking about, being a teenager and, you know, being a young girl and how you're viewed in different ways. And the quote that I was talking about earlier, it's when she confronts her dad and she asks, you know, did you ever love me? And he says, when you refuse God, what do you give me to love? And then she says, there, all this time, I've been the one chaining myself. I rise to my feet and leave, as hard and simple as that. And I just love that she had her chance to confront him and she got her answers. And there's just so many beautiful quotes and lines in here. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm like looking back at stuff and I'm just like, yep. And I really just didn't know what to expect, and I was so worried. I'm so glad he's not a vamp. I'll stop saying it, I mean. But I do feel like this is a book that like begs to be devoured, but also begs to have your time spent with it. So, and I definitely think it's a book that like on reread, I'm obviously going to pick up different things. So the only thing that took me like some beats to get used to is the past timeline not being linear. And that she was, you know, like she was 17 and she was 19, but like then she was 18 and then I think she was like 11. And it did jump a little bit, but it served the stories being told. But I do feel like I definitely had to like take a beat every once in a while where I'm like, wait, when did she tell him this? Okay, that's why he knew it. That's why this happened with Herman. So it wasn't like she did it a lot. For the most part, I feel like it was linear, but it definitely... I feel like because it wasn't in every other chapter, sometimes it would take me a minute to reground myself, and not at all a criticism. And in fact, having, again, listened to an interview that she did, she was talking about how she was almost like constraining herself to have the book fit in a like now then, like In My Dreams does. And when she decided just to write a book, and she was saying how Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston actually sort of gave her this freedom when she realized just write the story as it's meant to be written. And it doesn't have to follow a formula, and it doesn't have to follow a pattern. And how Red, White, and Royal Blue, it just goes from like chapter to chapter and person to person, and you're getting the story you need to get. And how liberating that was. And I'm not going to lie, it definitely flipped a switch in me where I definitely feel like I'm trying to force parts of my story to fit a structure I think it's supposed to have. And when I heard her say that, I was like, I don't have to do, because I'm trying to fit it into sort of like, I've got like a couple POVs and a couple timelines. Is it any wonder I can't finish this book? I've definitely bit off more than I can chew. But to stop trying to have it be something I think is supposed to be a typical book formula or a typical book structure. So it was just such a liberating comment that she made. But anyway, I could talk about this book for hours and hours and hours, but I'm not going to. So I would love to talk to you guys about it. But again, no spoilers down below, but feel free to contact me separately. And if you're like as much of a fangirl or just interested as I am, I definitely recommend chasing down a couple interviews with her, because it's really interesting to hear the insight. A lot of it becomes the same, because obviously she's telling the same stories about Twilight. It's definitely a landscaping situation starting. Oh yeah, I can see it across the street. It's a guy in a stand-up mower riding up the street on his mower. Last I checked, pavement doesn't get mowed. About to be, how lazy can you be? Anyway. The interviews are very interesting, and I think her absolute passion and love for what she's writing and what she's writing about is just so inspiring and contagious to me too. So there you go. But in a nutshell, I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it. I can see where this is not a for everyone kind of a book, but I don't think every book is a for everyone kind of a book. So I just have so much respect for her as an author. And I think I didn't even talk about like the commentary on like banned books and like the entire library situation, which I thought was great. I love that was Ruth's job. I love how she did the research. I love the laserfiche. I just loved everything about it. And I just thought it was fantastic. So there you go. There's my review. There's Midnight. Worth the wait. Absolutely loved it. Huge fan. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for being here. I have to assume that you guys are all also Ashley Winstead fans. That's a lot of A's. And I'm thinking I might start to vlog some more reading experiences. I don't know. We'll see. But I might do that with I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. I don't know if my book haul's gone up yet. If it has, I talked about doing something reading Jessica Knoll, and if it hasn't, I talked about doing something reading Backlist of Jessica Knoll. So there you go. Maybe that one will be next. So until then, until the next video, until I figure out what the heck I'm doing, I hope everybody's doing great. Take care, everybody. Again, thanks so much for being here, and I will see you guys in whatever the next video is. I'll see you there. Bye, everybody.